Hello and welcome to the Leadership and Culture Bite. I'm Dr. Simeon Roger, and this is where we talk about how superbly trained, visionary leaders create rapid innovation, killer teams, and the organization everybody wants to join. Now, as you've seen, today we're going to be talking about why you're simply not able to properly implement lessons learned in your organization. Now, everybody talks about lessons learned, and implementing lessons learned is one of your primary responsibilities as a leader. Yet, very few people are actually in a position to be able to do this properly. Now, lessons learned can be from anything. They can be from an emergency event that caught you off guard, a supply chain disruption, even something as simple as, the onboarding process for your organization. You go through it once, you look at it and say, a bunch of things didn't work. Okay, fine, fix them. Now, this, of course, assumes that you're going to learn the right lessons. That's a catch because anyone can look at what happened and derive some lessons. They may not be the right ones. Now, we're not going to talk about how to identify right versus wrong lessons right now, not in this video. But there are certain things that have to be in place if you want to implement lessons learned in a meaningful way. Because right now in Ukraine, the Russian army, Russian ground forces, are completely unable to implement any lessons learned, even if they identify them properly. And one of the first reasons they can't do this is they don't have a well-trained base. So implementing lessons learned absolutely depends on having good people under you, trained people under you. To implement these in their armed forces, the Russians would have to have first, they'd have to have an officer corps that could actually implement this at the tactical level. They'd have to have a cadre of NCOs, non-commissioned officers, who were capable of inculcating this into their troops. And they'd have to have troops that were well trained enough that they could execute basic combat operations. And they don't have any of that. This is a big problem. Now, if your organization is ever in a situation where you have to suddenly pivot, and that's what the Russians have to do, but they can't. But if you have to pivot to go from a dead end situation to actually making progress, it completely depends on having professional people who are well trained and well motivated. The Russians have none of that. Ask yourself about your organization. Do you? The second reason that they can't is, well, frankly, their people, their soldiers lack context. They lack the context. There's a huge difference between being told what to do, like take that hill over there, and that on the one hand, and being given the whole mission briefing on the other. Here's the objective. Here's why it's important. Here's how we think it's going to go. Okay, when you have the whole mission briefing, you can adapt on the fly when things don't go your way. And guess what? Things never go your way, not in real life. So you have to be able to do that. But the Russians can't do that because they simply can't adapt on the fly. The third reason is that there is no unit level decision making. They're not able at the unit level to make a decision. They can't make a decision to save their lives because at the unit level, they've never had to. They've never been allowed to. And they don't have the information on which to base a decision. So, given all of that, they're kind of sunk. But what about your people? What about your organization? Do you empower people at the unit level? Have you devolved decision making to the level of where the mission is actually happening? Because if the people who are executing the mission don't have full authority, then everything slows down to a crawl. If everything needs approval from above, let alone all the way from Moscow, everything is going to slow down for you. This is a huge problem. The fourth one is there's no esprit de corps, to use a military term. There's no esprit de corps. There's no feeling of camaraderie, of belonging to something that's meaningful, something that's bigger than yourself. And what we see the Russians doing right now in the Donbass is they're taking units that have been badly beaten up in the offensives in the north and the northeast, where the Ukrainians kicked them out, and they move them around to the Donbass, and they're trying to cobble these remnants together into new battalion tactical groups. Well, guess what? The new groups, the new BTGs, won't have any esprit de corps. If they had any in the first place, they won't have any now, because everything depends on keeping teams together. Because when you keep teams together, what you want to do in any organization, you have a team, keep it together, put it through challenging situations, let it work through those situations. That's how esprit de corps is developed. That's how people win. And when people win, they feel pride. And it's from having gone through adversity together, they become a well-knit unit. Okay, and it's unbelievable in the commercial world how we see so many organizations that think nothing of just tearing teams apart on a regular basis, having no idea of how much damage they're doing to themselves. It's really pretty unreal. Um, So unless you empower them to accomplish what they're supposed to do, you're not going to get esprit de corps. You're not going to get the camaraderie that your organization needs. Now, in order to address all of this, the Russians would have only one choice. They'd have to reinvent the entire organizational culture of the armed forces. That will take years at best of times. Now, fortunately for Ukraine, they started doing this when? 2014. And so what the Ukrainians did, they essentially they've left the Russian army with its antiquated hierarchical command and control structure in the dust. So ask yourself now about your own organization, What do you have? Do you meet all these criteria? Are you empowering your people? Are you creating the conditions which will allow the implementation of lessons learned? That's it for now. I'm Dr. Simeon Roger. Thanks for joining us. And be sure to keep an eye out for more from our team on how you can become a world-class leader and build an extraordinary organizational culture. See you next time.